Let's look at the text this week. We're going to start in 43. And we're going to read verses 15 to 34. So does anybody want to read tonight? Anybody want to read?
Just a minute. Let me get resituated here. You started at 15?
Yes, 15 to 34.
Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay. So the men took their presents and Benjamin, and they took double money in their hands and arose and went down into Egypt, and they stood before Joseph. When Joseph saw Benjamin with them, he said to the steward of the house, "Take these men to my house and slaughter an animal and make ready, for these men will dine with me at noon." Then the man did as Joseph ordered, and the man brought the men into Joseph's house. Now the men were afraid because they were brought into Joseph's house, and they said, "It is because of the money which was returned in our sacks the first time that we were brought in, so that he may seek an occasion against us and fall upon us to take us as slaves with our donkeys." When they drew near to the steward of Joseph's house, they talked with him at the door of the house and said, "Oh, sir, we indeed came down the first time to buy food. But it happened when we came to the encampment that we opened our sacks, and there each man's money was in the mouth of the sack, our money in full weight. So we have brought it back in our hand, and we have brought down other money in other hands to buy food. We do not know who put the money in our sacks." Then he said, "Peace be with you. Do not be afraid. Your God and the God of your father has given you treasure in your sacks. I had your money." Then he brought Simeon in out to them. So the man brought the men into Joseph's house and gave them water, and they washed their feet and gave their donkeys food. Then they made the present ready for Joseph's coming at noon, for they heard that they would eat bread there. And when Joseph came home, they brought him the present which was in their hands into the house, and bowed down before him to the earth. Then he asked them about their well-being and said, "Is your father well? The old man of whom you spoke, is he still alive?" And they answered, "Your servant, our father, is in good health. He is still alive." And they bowed their heads down and prostrated themselves. Then he lifted his eyes and saw his brother Benjamin, his mother's son, and said, "Is this your younger brother of whom you spoke to me?" And he said, "God is gracious to you, my son." Now his heart yearned for his brother. So Joseph made haste and sought somewhere to weep. And he went into his chamber and wept there. Then he washed his face and came out and restrained himself and said, "Serve the bread." So they set him a place by himself, and they by themselves. And the Egyptians who ate with him by themselves, because the Egyptians could not eat food with the Hebrews, for that is an abomination to the Egyptians. And they set before him the firstborn according to his birthright, and the youngest according to his youth. And the man looked in astonishment at each other. Then he took servings to them from before him, but Benjamin, did I read that right? Then he took servings to them from before him, but Benjamin's serving was 5 times as much as as any of theirs. So they drank and were merry with him.
All right. Very good. Thank you. Okay, so when the brothers get back down to Egypt, what happens? What's going on? What do they meet? What's going on when they get back down to Egypt?
Well, you talking about when they got there, they walked in there and Joseph saw him and he spotted his brother. And okay. I can imagine how he felt. You know, I mean, the other 10 were his mother's kids, but they weren't his. They weren't his. How do I put that? They were his daddy's sons, but they were not his mother's kids.
Yeah, they weren't from the same mom. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Anybody else? What happened when they get down to Egypt? They get down to Egypt.
Delighted to see Benjamin.
Yeah, Joseph is delighted. Right. So they get down to Egypt, and they're gonna have a meal, aren't they?
Yeah.
Right. They're told, hey, you're gonna come have a meal. Now, what do they think when they're invited to this meal?
That they're fixing to be made slaves.
Yeah, right. They're thinking we're in trouble now. And why are they in trouble?
Because their money had been returned to them.
Right. They're thinking this guy, you know, he's going to think that we're thieves, that we took this money, we took the food, we took back our money, we robbed them. And so what do they say to the steward? What do they say to Joseph's steward when they're invited to the meal? You're invited to a meal. Typically, how many of you, if I were to say, and this can happen, but if I were to say, hey, Tim, I want to have you over for a meal, would you be thinking, uh-oh, I'm in trouble? Would the first thing through your minds be, what have I done wrong?
Yeah.
I would hope not.
Yeah.
They must have been very confused.
Yeah. Now listen, there are some times where people react the way these brothers reacted, like, uh-oh, what's going on? Like, I remember I talked with somebody, I said, hey, I want to get together with you. I'd love to get coffee. When can we get together? And they said, oh, I can do this. But they said, is this a good meeting or a bad meeting? And I'm like, I just want to get a cup of coffee. I don't have any motives here other than just wanting to get to know you. And they were like, oh, I thought maybe you were going to say, hey, thanks for coming, but we don't want you here anymore, which was certainly not in my mind. So sometimes people can feel, for whatever reason, they can feel like Joseph's brothers do. But I think you're right. I think they're confused. My first reaction, just if somebody invited me, even somebody special, my first reaction probably wouldn't be, uh-oh, I've done something wrong. Now, this is going through their minds because they know that the money is was back in their bags. And so they think maybe we're getting tricked here. Maybe we're going to be trapped. Maybe we're going to be taken advantage of and put into prison or something like that because, these guys think we stole from them, something along those lines.
I think it's interesting that earlier the response when they saw the money sacks back in their bags, that they went kind of dark with that too.
Yeah.
And maybe the override, when you've done something horrible in your past, like what they did to their brother, maybe that guilt rides with them everywhere, and they analyze life's circumstances based on that it's eventually going to catch up with them.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And we're going to see that over and over again a number of times. So I think you're right on the money with this. A guilty conscience, is kind of at work here, I think, with them. Because you're right, they keep saying these kinds of things that make you think, why do they automatically assume they're being punished? Well, because they have guilty consciences, things of that nature. Now, when they get to Joseph's house, though, when they're invited, how are they treated?
The same way the Jews treat everybody else.
Okay, how's that?
Well, they won't eat with them. They don't want to associate with them under any circumstances.
Okay, there's some of that. There's some separation there with the Egyptians. They don't eat with certain individuals.
That's
But how are the brothers treated? I mean, other than they have to sit at a different table. Are they abused? Are they mistreated? Are they harassed in any way?
No, they were given good food.
Right.
And Benjamin was given 5 times as much as the rest of them.
Absolutely. And so they're treated like guests, aren't they, of Joseph? They're Joseph's guests. Now, yes, they have different places to sit because of issues of customs, and Egyptians feel a certain way, but nobody is mistreated. They all come in. They're all given plenty of food right off of Joseph's table, so they're treated like guests. They're even given water, right? They're given water to wash their feet. They're given fodder, food for their animals. And Simeon is brought out to them, right? So this is a good time, right? They might have been nervous before, but they have no reason to be nervous at this point. I mean, everything's looking great. They're given food, they're given water, their animals are provided for. There's no problem. Now, what happens when Joseph sees Benjamin? When he sees him for the first time? Well, first of all, let's ask this.
Well, could you say he got a lump in he got a lump in his throat?
Right, he got a lump in his throat. And he asks a couple questions, right? But he asks, is your father well? This is something that Joseph continues to ask. Why do you think he keeps asking about his father? And they don't know it's his father, but he keeps asking about, how is your father? Is he well? Why does he keep asking?
His father too, and he wants to know. Because it's his father too, and he wants to know how he is.
That's right, Karen. I can hear you. Speak up next time.
She said because it's his father too, and he wanted to know what's going on.
Yeah, and he hasn't seen his father in a long time. This is many years later. And he keeps asking them, certainly because he wants to see his father, but he also is asking because he wants to make sure his father is alive. Remember, the last thing that Joseph knew about his brothers prior to them coming down to Egypt and all of this is that they're dirty, rotten scoundrels, that they're people who are willing to kill their own, willing to sell their own into slavery. I mean, these are ruthless people. They're willing to lie and all that. So Joseph is very concerned, and he continuously is asking these questions about his father. He's hopeful that his father is still alive and that these boys aren't simply lying. Oh, yeah, he's alive, for whatever reason, lying to to him. So he keeps asking this, but then he asks, "Who is this? Is this your younger brother Benjamin?" And when it's affirmed, that's when he gets that lump in his throat, right? As Luther said, and he can't control himself. He's very emotional at this point in time. I don't know if many of you have been away from family members for months or years, and when there's this kind of coming back together, this reunion, it can be very emotional for a lot of people. A lot of times, people go into the military, or they're in the military and they go off to war, active duty, things like that. When they come home, when they come back, it's extremely emotional. You've probably seen some of those videos of husbands or wives who are in the military, and they surprise, their spouse at home. They come home early or something like that. And it's just a very emotional kind of experience. And so that's what Joseph is kind of feeling here. He's feeling all these different emotions, and he's unable to control himself. So what's he do when he's unable to control himself?
Goes in the other room, turns his back.
Yeah. Now, why does he do that? Why didn't he just break down and cry?
Well, for one thing, he didn't want to see his brothers cry before them.
He doesn't. I don't think he wants to be recognized yet, right?
Right.
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah, I was going to say I don't think he was ready for them to know yet.
Absolutely.
Who he was.
Now, why not though? How come he's still not ready? What do you think?
He's waiting for him. Maybe he's waiting for him to prove themselves or something. I don't know.
Prove themselves. Sarah, go ahead.
Or to have his father join them.
Okay. Maybe reveal at the same time. I think probably the most pressing issue is what kind of character are these guys? Joseph still doesn't know what kind of men they are. So I think he's still got some testing that he's going to do to try to make sure that these brothers of his aren't still ruthless. Have they had a change of heart? Have they had a change of character? Are they different people at this point in life? He wants to find that out. So he lines them all up, right? They're all getting ready to eat, and he lines them up from oldest to youngest. And then he gives Benjamin 5 times the amount of food. What is Joseph doing with that? Why does he do that? Why does he line them all up at the table from oldest to youngest and then give Benjamin 5 times the amount of food?
Well, he may have wanted to see their reaction to how they acted when they saw that he got more than they did.
Right, absolutely. And in some ways he's dropping some hints, isn't he?
Right.
There's some subtle hints that this guy knows something about us, or maybe God is doing something in the midst of all this, right? The brothers keep bringing God back up again, probably partly because of their guilty consciences and all that. But there's something going on here where they're all lined up. I think you would notice that. Here's a guy who doesn't really know us. It's not like he knows all of our ages and everything, and yet we're lined up perfectly. And then, of course, Benjamin gets the 5 times amount of food. And I think you're right, Bill. I think what he's doing is he's wanting to see if the favorite child is going to get mistreated. What are these guys going to do? I've given them food, but I'm gonna overdo Benjamin's portion here. What are the brothers going to do? What are they going to say? Am I going to see some kind of evil, hateful motives in them, or are they going to be jealous? So he's testing the waters still. How does the chapter end? How does this chapter end?
Well, they were evidently happy
Yeah,
at the end.
yeah, yeah. It ends on a positive note, doesn't it? It ends on a high note. They might have started out a bit nervous, but hey, everybody's enjoying, lunch. Things are going well. There's no problems. Life is good. Yeah, there's some odd things going on. This guy lined us all up in kind of in order, and Benjamin got, a bunch more food than we have. But, everything's pretty good. It's not as if there's any kind of major problems. Nobody's angry. Nobody's being hauled off to prison or being, beheaded or anything like that. So it ends on a very high note, very positive note. Things are well. So does anybody have any questions, thoughts, comments before we move into the next chapter? I don't want to jump the gun.
Back there in verse 23, they were explaining to him what happened, and when they were real concerned.
Yeah.
And they were telling him how everything happened with the money in the sacks and all that. But the servant says, but he said, "Peace be with you. Do not be afraid. Your God and the God of your father has given you treasure in your sacks." I had money. That's an Egyptian talking there. That's saying your God's got this under control. I hadn't noticed that until I was. I don't know. What do you think?
I think he's just I just think he's just waving them away. It'd be very common for you to say the God's, the God of your father, the God, he's polytheist. More than likely, he believes in many gods. So he's just kind of waving them off. Oh, don't worry about it. Your God's taking care of it. The God of your fathers, all that kind of thing. I don't see anything important with that. I just see him brushing it off, saying, "Oh yeah, don't worry about it. Your God took care of it. No problem."
Okay.
Anybody with anything else before we move into the next chapter? All right. I'm going to read a lengthy text here. We're going to read 1 through 34. So chapter 44, and we're going to look at verses 1 through 34, and then we'll go back and we'll talk about it. I'll read this text because it's lengthy. So it says this. Then he commanded the steward. Now this is Joseph. Okay, so they just finished the party. They just finished having a great lunch. Everything's wonderful. They're full. They're ready to go now. Then he, that's Joseph, commanded the steward of his house. He said, "Fill the men's sack with food, as much as they can carry, and put each man's money in the mouth of his sack. And put my cup, the silver cup, in the mouth of the sack of the youngest, with his money for the grain." And he did as Joseph told him. As soon as the morning was light, the men were sent away with their donkeys. They had gone only a short distance from the city. Now Joseph said to his steward, "Up, follow after the men, and when you overtake them, say to them, 'Why have you repaid evil for good? Is it not from this that my Lord dreams, and by this that he practices divination? You have done evil in doing this.' When he overtook them, he spoke to them these words. And they said to him, 'Why does my Lord speak such words as these? Far be it from your servants to do such a thing. Behold, the money that we found in the mouths of our sacks, we brought back to you from the land of Canaan. How then could we steal silver or gold from your Lord's house? Whichever of your servants is found, with it shall die, and we also will be my Lord's servants. He said, let it be as you say. He who is found with it shall be my servant, and the rest of you shall be innocent. Then each man quickly lowered his sack to the ground, and each man opened his sack. And he searched, beginning with the eldest and ending with the youngest. And the cup was found in Benjamin's sack. Then they tore their clothes, and every man loaded his donkey, and they returned to the city. When Judah and his brothers came to Joseph's house, he was still there. They fell before him to the ground. Joseph said to them, what deed is this that you have done? Do you not know that a man like me can indeed practice divination? And Judah said, what shall we say to my Lord? What shall we speak? Or how can we clear ourselves? God has found out the guilt of your servants. Behold, we are my Lord's servants, both we and he also in whose hand the cup has been found. But he said, far be it from me that I should do so. Only a man in whose hand the cup was found shall be my servant. But as for you, go up in peace to your father. Then Judah went up to him and said, oh, my Lord, please let your servant speak a word in my Lord's ears, and let not your anger burn against your servant. For you are like Pharaoh himself. My Lord asked his servant, saying, have you a father or a brother? And we said to my Lord, we have a father, an old man, and a young brother, the child of his old age. His brother is dead, and he alone is left of his mother's children, and his father loves him. Then you said to your servants, bring him down to me, that I may set my eyes on him. We said to my Lord, the boy cannot leave his father, for if he should leave his father would die. Then you said to your servant, unless your younger brother comes down with you, you shall not see my face again. When he went back to your servant, my father, we told him the words, my Lord. And when our father said, go again, buy us a little food, we said, we cannot go down. If our younger brother goes down, we cannot go down. If our youngest brother goes with us, then we will go down. For we cannot see the man's face unless our youngest brother is with us. And your servant, my father, said to us, you know that my wife bore me 2 sons. One left me. And I said, surely he has been torn to pieces, and I have never seen him since. If you take this one also from me, and harm happens to him, you will bring down my gray hairs in evil to Sheol. Now, therefore, as soon as I came to your servant, my father, and the boy is not with us, then, as his life is bound up in the boy's life, as soon as he sees the boy is not with us, he will die. And your servants will bring down the gray hairs of your servant, our father, with sorrow to Sheol. For your servant became a pledge of safety for the boy to my father, saying, if I do not bring him back to you, then I shall bear the blame before my father all my life. Now, therefore, please let your servant remain instead of the boy as a servant to my Lord, and let the boy go back with his brothers. For how can I go back to my father if the boy is not with me? I fear to see the evil that would find my father. All right, I know that was a lengthy reading, but it's good to get the whole context there. All right, so what's happening in this section? What's happening kind of in the big picture here? What begins the process? What does Joseph begin to do here at the beginning?
Well, he sets a trap, so to speak,
right?
And putting the money in there and the cup. He's hitting them hard with Benjamin.
Yeah, he is. Absolutely. Yeah, he wants to put him to the test. Notice, though, he starts out sending them off with everything wonderful, right? Remember, they just you know, the night before or the day before, they had this great lunch. They're sent away. When morning comes, they're all loaded up. Everything's good, and they're sent off. They have so much food, you know, that the animals can carry. You know, as much food as the animals can carry, all that kind of stuff. Of course, Joseph again adds the money back, and he also adds that cup, that silver cup, that cup of divination. But they're off with no problems. Here's a question that I always think about when I read this, though. How come the brothers didn't check their sacks before leaving?
They didn't expect it.
I think I would have checked my sack. The last time we left Egypt, when we you know, we're headed back, we found our money was still in there. I don't know. They're not worried about it, but I would be checking. Now, you know, to be fair, they might have a lot of baggage, a lot of equipment. You know, their money sacks and grains and all that could be kind of buried. But I personally would be thinking, I might want to check my bag before we leave. I don't know, but they don't. They don't check it, and so they head out. And of course, Joseph wants to test them, and this is a doozy of a test, absolutely. So he sends a steward out, and what does the steward say to these boys, these men, really, these brothers? What's he say to them?
So why did you do it?
Yeah, why did you steal, right? Why did you take it? Why did you steal? And of course, the brothers are, they say we didn't do anything. In fact, they're so sure of their innocence, aren't they? How do we know that they are so completely sure that they are innocent of any wrongdoing? How do we know that? I mean, we know they're innocent, but they proclaim their innocence pretty boldly.
Well, if they say if someone is found with it, they shall die.
Right. You don't say that if you're unsure, right? I mean, right? You don't say those kinds of things if you're even a little leery, like, oh, I don't know, Benjamin's a little bit of a klepto. We don't know. I mean, they're proclaiming their innocence pretty boldly, pretty strongly. Not only will the person who has it die, but we'll all be your servants. There's no problem here. And how does the servant or the steward here, how does the steward go about checking them? What's the process?
Oldest to youngest.
Oldest to youngest. In a way, this should bring us back to the way they were seated, right? Joseph put them oldest to youngest. They're starting from oldest to youngest. And as they're opening the bags, and I don't know if the steward is spotting the money or if he cares about that. He doesn't mention the money. What does he mention?
Cup.
That cup. The steward doesn't care about the money. I don't think that's the issue. Because all of them, it says they all have their money back in their bag. But that's not the problem. That's not the crime. The crime that they're looking for, this steward is looking for, is that silver cup. So I could imagine, even though this money is back there, the boys might be thinking, oh, I don't know, miraculous, God's miraculously giving our money back, something like that. But I could imagine, maybe you could too, that as each bag is opened and there's no silver cup, that they might even become a little bit more bolden, in their proclamation, like, see, we told you, stop harassing us, leave us alone. What do they finally find at the end?
It's in Benjamin's sack.
Which one of them? Go ahead, what?
I said the cup is in Benjamin's sack.
Right. Which one of the brothers had 5 times the amount of food? Which one was taken care of the most? Which one got the special treatment?
Benjamin.
And here's the thief, right? at least it looks like he's the thief, right? The one who was given the most special treatment is now looked at as the one who has robbed this guy of his stuff. Now, do the brothers have a good reason for not returning with Benjamin? If they return home, do they have a good reason?
Their father would die.
Yes, yes, but do they have a good excuse for why Benjamin's not with them?
Yeah.
Let's ask it this way. Did the brothers do anything wrong?
No.
Did they commit any crimes?
No.
Were they deceitful in any way?
No.
Okay. So they have a good reason for coming back without Benjamin. It was out of their control, right? This is not something that they should feel guilty about. This is not something that they could have prevented. Benjamin, if they go back to their father without Benjamin, this actually is a great excuse for why Benjamin's not with them. This guy, hey, Benjamin took this guy's cup. He says he didn't do it, but it was found in there. Would it be very easy if these boys hated Benjamin? Would this be a lot easier for them to get rid of Benjamin than it was to get rid of Joseph?
Well, they knew what it would do to their father if that's what happened.
That's true. That's true. But if they were the same kind of people that they were years ago, is this an easy way to get rid of their brother if they hated Benjamin? I'm just saying if.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I think this is great. In fact, they don't even have to feel guilty about it. If they have the same wicked, hateful, vengeful people, then this is a great way they could get rid of Benjamin, and it's out of their control. They have a great excuse. But that's not what happens, right? So Joseph is testing them. We know that. He's testing them. And they have a great reason for leaving them behind, but they don't. They don't do that. They're not willing to do that. So what happens next? After they get back to Joseph's house, what happens next?
Judah takes Joseph aside and has a little talk with him. And I think that's what Joseph was shooting for, was it's time for you to confess what you've done, get the past out in the open so that we can put it behind us. So we put it behind us.
Yeah, he's looking to see the character of these guys, and here he's got Judah who comes forward. Judah is the spokesman in this section, and he comes forward and he talks to Joseph, and he recaps everything, doesn't he? He recounts everything. As far as we know, Joseph didn't have all the details from everything that happened as the boys traveled, the brothers traveled back and forth to Egypt and met with their father and came back. Joseph doesn't have all the details. We do. We have all the details because we're reading the story as it's unfolding. But Judah recounts. He tells him what has happened. He's giving him all the information. Listen, let me tell you about this. And he has no problem mentioning that that Benjamin is the apple of his father's eye, that he's the special son. He has no problem with that. He's not upset about it. He doesn't seem to hold any hate. He just tells this guy, he doesn't know who Joseph is, tells him everything that's going on, says he's special, his brother is dead. Now, none of the boys come out and confess that they killed their brother. in their minds that they killed their brother Joseph. They just say he's not here. But he kind of goes through the whole story. He gives them all the details and says, this is going to be a problem. And then what's he willing to do? He tells them the story, and then what does Judah say at the end of that story?
Take me.
Yeah. Take me. Has there been a change in Judah?
Evidently.
Yeah. Judah was the one who said, let's sell our brother. Yeah, let's not kill him. Let's sell him for money. Judah was the one who did that with Joseph, was willing to go ahead and do that. But here he's now willing to, in a sense, pay the price. He's willing to be the substitute for his brother. So there's been a massive change. What does Joseph know now? What are some of the things that Joseph actually knows?
Well, the brothers have changed.
That's the big one, right?
Yeah, that's the big one.
He knows the father's still alive.
Yeah.
That's right, Karen.
Yeah.
I don't have any voice.
Yeah.
Father is still alive. He knows for sure, right? I mean,
Yeah.
why bring up all of this if they're in a panic mode trying to tell stories about how to get out of this thing? So the brothers have changed. He knows that they don't harbor these resentful feelings towards the favorite, the younger brother. In fact, they're willing to protect him, which is a complete change from who they used to be. It's a major change there. And his father is still alive. All of that. So he gets a lot of good information.
Yeah. Does Joseph know that his father would die if Benjamin does not return with him? Does he know that up to this point?
No, I don't think he knows all the details. Joseph doesn't know all the details.
Yeah, I don't think so.
No, the only thing he knows is Benjamin is with them. And they keep saying that their father's alive, but that's all he knows at this point. He doesn't really have all the details. It's hard for us because we get all the details, but Joseph doesn't know. He only gets kind of a full picture right here. Right here he's starting to get the full picture of who these guys are, the feelings that his father has for Benjamin, and all of that kind of stuff. So he gets the full picture now, but he didn't know this before. Let me ask you this: what event? Just thinking about Judah, what event in the life of Judah might have helped change and mold his character from who he used to be to who he is now?
He's the one that wrestled with God, wasn't he?
No, that was their father, Jacob.
Okay. Oh, okay. Disregard. There was a thought.
Think about it for a moment. Was there, when we started looking at the life of Joseph, was there a chapter where we kind of departed from Joseph and it almost seemed like an interruption? We looked at someone else's life and then we come back to Joseph's life. Anybody remember that?
I missed that one.
All right, I'm going to start calling on people to answer questions now.
Good luck.
You'll remember Judah has an experience with his daughter-in-law, Tamar.
Yeah.
Does everybody remember that now?
Yes.
Here's part of the connecting tissue as to why that story is important. There's a lot of reasons it's important, but why is it kind of slotted in the middle of Joseph's life. It's because it has relevance. We're seeing one event in the life of Judah, and again, there's a lot of reasons why it's there. There's some comparisons going on, but at the end of that chapter, you remember that Judah is confronted with a woman who he says is more righteous than he is. He had mistreated her, wasn't being right with her, and at the end, there's some changes that happen in his life. I think that's why, one of the reasons why that chapter is there, so that when we get to Judah here, we can kind of get a glimpse of the man has been changed. There's been life events that have been happening that God has been using to change him, to mold and shape him, and that, I think, is a big one. So Judah has a whole change in attitude, and one of the events, at least in his life, is that interaction with Tamar. Now, later in history, Judah is going to become a whole tribe. He's going to become one of the 12 tribes of Israel. And who comes out of that tribe that's a very extremely important person for all history?
Jesus, I think.
Who comes out of the tribe of Judah?
Oh, what? Jesus came through it, didn't he?
That's right. Jesus, who is the Lion of the tribe of Judah, right? So Jesus comes out of the tribe of Judah. I want you to notice that Judah, in a sense, is foreshadowing what Jesus is going to do, who comes out of Judah. What does Judah do for his brother Benjamin, who is, for all purposes, right, outwardly looking anyways, is guilty of a crime against one who is in control? What is Judah willing to do?
Offer himself as a sacrifice.
That's right. He's willing to be the substitute. Remember we talked last week, if you're going to school and your teacher is going to be out, you get a substitute teacher. You get one who takes the place of the other. Judah is doing what Jesus is going to do later on. There's this substitutionary atonement aspect that we're finding in here. Judah is willing to pay the price to release someone who is guilty, right? Benjamin's not really guilty, but you get the idea. He's seen as guilty of a crime. Judah says, I will take his place. Take me instead. And of course, in the fuller sense, in a real way, Jesus does that for all of us. Jesus takes the place of his brothers, according to the flesh, we would say all humanity. He takes the place of those who have actually sinned, who really have committed a crime. But Jesus says, I'll take their place. I'll be their substitute. So here we see a bit of foreshadowing of what's going to happen when the Christ comes out of Judah. He's going to be the substitute for the whole human family. What time is it? Oh, look at that. It's 59, according to my clock. I was going to keep going. You guys are lucky I looked, right? Everybody's rejoicing now, right? Praise God, he looked at the clock. We're done. All right, so you're off the hook. We're gonna pause there. Does anybody have any questions or comments or thoughts or anything they want to say or need to get out before we close in prayer about some of the things we talked about tonight?